got no clue how I'm excited about this one, man. So, I mentioned it to our guest today earlier, but I grew up watching WWF, WWE for so many years, and being fans of all the Polynesian guys that were in pro wrestling. Of course, Superfly, Jimmy Snuka, Haku, Rock Don Morocco, The Rock, and all these other guys coming up, and then this gentleman being the son of WWE Hall of Famer Jimmy Superfly Snuka. I remember watching him in the mid 2000s when he came in as Deuce and Domino, playing Deuce, and then when he revealed to everybody that he was the son of Superfly Jimmy Snuka, everybody was like, "What?" And then he did his solo career for a little while too, and I was bummed. I even told him this earlier. I was bummed when Randy Orton and the other brothers kicked him and the other Polynesian brother Manu out of Legacy. I was pissed off. I ain't gonna lie. But I know there's a lot of other things that have gone on in this person's life, and so we get a chance to find out what was going on with JS Snuka II behind the scenes, his life story. We get this cool opportunity today, and so I'm gonna zip my lip and just let this guy just introduce himself and share his mana'o, his advice and his thoughts with all of us today. So, ladies and gentlemen, hecka excited. We have the man himself, formerly known as Sim the Deuce Snuka. Here is JS Snuka II. Brother, thank you so much.
My man, Gavin, good to see you on here. Good to meet up on here. Appreciate you taking the time, man, for us to chat a little bit.
Oh yeah, no, for sure, bro. This is so cool. But yeah, if you don't mind, I mean, I know a lot of people kind of know you already, but if you don't mind telling us a little bit about yourself, if you can share maybe some things that maybe people might not know, that would be awesome, brother. Thank you.
For sure. Well, I think first off, most important is I think I want everybody to know that I'm just like you. I've had a lot of struggles, a lot of pain, a lot of problems, and I'm just like you guys. That's probably the most important thing I can say. Uh, I grew up, of course, with my father. My father is a Fijian. He's from Fiji. He's Fijian in English, and there's some other stuff in there, but that's mainly what it is. And then my mom is she's actually from Samoa, from Western Samoa, from the island of Savaii, and I pretty much grew up in Hawaii. I mean, we grew up all over the place, and then when I was a little kid, we were there, and then we moved away, and then we came back, and I went to high school in Hawaii at Kahuku High School. So I've been a little bit everywhere, and I would have to say my life's been pretty crazy. A lot of craziness, as you might imagine. Growing up on the road with my father. I mean, if any of you have ever watched the TV show The Young Rock, I mean that's pretty much our life. It was similar. My own personal life was similar to that. On the road with my dad, and then him being in WWE and then not being there, and just all the trials and just the hard times that come with that. So just been a lot of different places and seen a lot of different things. But I think with all the pain, all the struggles, all the problems, in all honesty, it gave me a lot of good perspective. It really helped me understand a lot of things, because being Polynesian and being in Hawaii and seeing that life, and then kind of being all over the place, like all kinds of different places around the United States, and then traveling around the world myself, it just gave me a lot of different perspective on just life and just how to overcome a lot of things. Yeah.
I hear you on that, man. Yeah, my wife and we watch Young Rock all the time, and yeah, super fans of the show. I gotta ask you too, though. Like, I know, I think it was a previous podcast you might have done. You mentioned about how you would go backstage and see your dad wrestle and all these things. And if I remember correctly, you didn't want to wrestle right off the bat, correct? You were kind of, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. I actually never wanted to wrestle. That wasn't that wasn't anything that was even remotely in my thoughts, or what I thought wasn't in my DNA. Right. I grew up, I played a lot of sports. I wasn't great at anything, but I loved sports. And I really wanted to play football, kind of like a lot of Polynesian guys, right? You want to play football and impress your dad, impress your family. And I wanted to get a scholarship and go and do that. And then something crazy happened, right? Is my senior year. So I played my freshman year in high school. We moved back to Hawaii, and I went to Kahuku High School, and I did really well in the mainland in football, like Pop Warner, all that. I did really good. Matter of fact, Dwayne and I, we when we our families lived in North Carolina. Talk about Dwayne Johnson. Is, he played with the older guys because he was so much bigger and heavier, and he would just get eaten up all the time, right? Because he's this young kid, but he's huge, and I'm with guys, more my age or whatever. And so I did really well, right? Had the stickers on the helmet, everything. I get to Hawaii, right? And my uncles and everybody say, "Yeah, you got to come and play for Kahuku." Oh yeah, I was all geared up. I was ready to go. Yeah, set the bench because everybody's talented, right? Everybody's good back home, especially at Kahuku. And so, I was a running back, and so I'm there in Hawaii playing running back at Kahuku, and so I'm on the bench. I'm like third, fourth string or whatever. And then I didn't have the grades my sophomore year. Didn't have My family moved. We kind of went to Samoa for a little bit, and I came back, and so my grades again. So didn't have it my junior year. So finally, a friend of mine talks to me. He's, "Hey, we should go out for football senior year." He and I were seniors. Alan Tevanga was his name, and he said, "Yeah, let's go out." So we went out for the football team, and there I was. I was like, "Okay, this is my chance. I'm gonna get a scholarship, earn that, right?" Yeah, I finished again. I'm back up to another guy, Paris, a Pokehau, Hawaiian guy, right? I was on the bench behind him at slot back, and so the one game he's hurt, and so now I get my chance to start, right, my senior year, and I forget what happened. I think maybe I had bad grades that time, and so the only chance I get to start my senior year, I'm on the bench again. They
Oh
they put the other
crap!
guy behind. Exactly. So guess what my college prospects were like coming out of high school, right? Guess what they were like? Yeah, exactly. I got one letter from some school in California, and it was more like just a questionnaire, right? Like, hey, that was all I got. And so I was bummed, right? Because I really wanted to play football. And anyway, to kind of shorten things down, is that was my life. That was kind of the way my life went. And then I got to a point in my life where you ever been doing something and you feel like, you absolutely feel like inside your bones, inside your guts, right? That you should be doing something else, right? I think that's one of the reasons you started this podcast, right? Was like you felt like, I saw that video that you did, but once I saw that, the one you sent me, I was in. I said, yeah, let's do this. So I love that. I appreciate that, Gavin. So, anyways, so what I'm saying is I felt like I should be doing something else. I was working two jobs. I had a couple of kids, married, everything, and um, I was working at a TV station as a cameraman. Was one of my jobs. I was a youth counselor as well, and so I had to wake up at like 3 in the morning, drive, into Salt Lake because I was living in Orem at the time. I had to drive into Salt Lake City, Utah, like 45 minutes to KSL. It was a TV station. It was an affiliate of NBC. Anyway, so I'd work that job till 1 o'clock or something, then drive back to Orem and work as a youth counselor for another 8 hours or whatever. And I was just killing myself. And my dad came to visit me one time and saw what I did, and he was like, "You need to be doing something else." So I got to a point basically in my life where I said, "All right, this isn't working," but I felt like I need to be doing something else, and I felt like I should go and wrestle, and I'd never felt that way before ever in my life. And basically, what happened, the short version is, I knew that if I was going to go and do this, I needed two people to say yes. my wife, and somebody I really trusted. So understand this. I love my father. We had a very close relationship most of my life, and he helped me with a lot of things. He taught me a lot of things, mindset, mental toughness, and all these different things. But one area at certain points of my dad's life he couldn't help me with. He couldn't help me really like spiritually, right? He wasn't able to really help me in that area. So I have another man. His name's Robert T. Ferguson. I just call him President, and we got to work together for a period of time. And I knew when I went to him, if he said yes, then I was going to wrestle. So I went to my wife said, yeah, okay, let's do it. And I went to President Ferguson and I said, this is what I'm thinking about doing. And I know what the road life is like. I know what, what that entails. It's basically sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? That's living on the road. You can make a good living possibly, right? But it's crazy. And I saw that all my life. So I asked him and I said, should I do this? And he said something I'll never forget. He said, "Well, if anybody can do it, you could do it." And what he meant by that was I wouldn't lose myself. Is what he was essentially saying, that he believed that I wouldn't lose myself, that I would still stay strong, stay true to who I was and the things that we believe in. And that was really important to me. So once I had those two answers, then I said, okay, I'll go and wrestle.
Bro, that's freaking awesome, man. When you were talking about living in Utah, so I actually went to BYU Provo, and so I was living in Provo for a while. I actually met, I think, I think it's your sister, Ata Snuka.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, yeah, because she was at Provo for a while too, and my cousins, I don't know if you might know them, the Kukahiko family. My uncle Glenn, he moved from Maui, and then he moved there, and they were living in Orem for a long time. But yeah, so I would commute through Orem all the time. So I was getting kind of nostalgic. You talking about all that stuff, and it's pretty cool. And
Yeah. So that's Sister Atta. So she's named after Dwayne's mom, Atta. That's that. Yeah.
that's
So
pretty cool.
yes. Yeah,
That's
that's my youngest sister.
that's pretty cool, man. Yeah, I haven't seen her for a while too. um, you were talking about entertainment. So like I used to be in Polynesian dance for a while, and I know you have too. You've done Polynesian dancing too, and a lot of times, like you mentioned, you go involved in entertainment. It's not exactly the most conducive environment for holding standards and whatnot. How were you? How were you able to deal with that? Just being in that environment, just how were you able to? Because you said your dad like helped you with mindset, positive mindset, and just being strong. How were you able to maneuver through all those challenges? If you don't mind me asking that question.
Sure, sure. And I think a lot of things, like with everybody, right? You try to do your best. You're trying to have a focus. You're trying to have standards, right? And you're trying to follow those. I know a couple of things that would help many times was when I think marriage or a partnership, like in business or anything, it's a collaboration, right? And I've found that those things work the best in whatever it is you're trying to do. And so I would collaborate with my wife, and we had, some things that, okay, this is what we're going to do. And, try to talk on the phone, every night and that kind of thing. So if I was overseas, that was before FaceTime and Zoom and cell phones and all that. So I was running up these international phone bills and, so it was crazy, but just trying to I think it's important in anything is you're trying to have a standard and trying to live that standard. And you may not always do it right or perfectly or whatever, but I think it's important that you have a standard with whatever it is you're trying to do. And here's a good example. When I first got married to my wife, right? So her family, my wife is Samoan. Both her parents are Samoan. Her mom's actually from Hawaii, and her dad was from Western Samoa. And they never their house was a very calm, right, a Samoan family. So nobody yelled, right? She didn't get sussed or spanked or anything, right? So real calm Samoan family. Okay, and then you have my house, okay, where my mom was chasing us down with brooms and everything else, right, that she could find. My dad, on the other hand, actually he never spanked us, he never sussed us. I think I saw him like sussa my youngest sister Ata like one time, like just a little smack on the butt, and that's all I ever saw him do with us kids. But my mom, different story, right? She was the disciplinary. She had to be. My dad was gone all the time, so uh, so basically we yelled. There was a lot of a lot of arguments, and that kind of stuff was normal in my house. A lot of emotion. And so when I got married, I brought that with me, and so I try to yell at my wife, right? And it was like, "Are you done?" You know, you know what I mean? And so she wasn't having it, and I finally learned over time, right, that she had a standard of how you're going to talk to me, basically. And it's not okay to talk to me like that or like this. And she had this standard. And so if I started yelling or if I get upset or like whatever happened, she would she just wouldn't talk. And then I knew, okay, I got to stop. And so I found that whatever you're doing, basically, if you're on the road, if you're in business, if you got a job, is you got to have some kind of a standard, or what I call like a moral standard, right? Is you got to have a set standard that you're trying to live by. Trying to. I'm not saying perfect, but you're going to try to. And I found that that helps a lot.
Thanks for that advice, bro. My wife and I are what 10, 11 years in right now. And so yeah, I can always learn from people more experienced than I. So I appreciate it big time, brother.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, like, here's a crazy thing, right? Is so I've been married almost 30 years. So we just hit 29 years. Okay. And here's why I like this is so and I'm a pattern watcher by nature. Okay. My dad was a pattern watcher. My wife's a pattern watcher. I'm a pattern watcher by nature. It's helped me in business and life from watching different patterns. I watch my dad do it all the time. So here's a pattern for you, right? So my dad's been divorced. My mom, of course, my mom, my wife's parents divorced. I have aunts, uncles, sisters, cousins, like everybody divorced, right? So I come from that background. So does my wife. And I remember when my parents got divorced, I hated it. I was like 20, 21. I was 21 years old when they got divorced. And I mean, it rocked my world. And so me getting married, I'd never wanted to get divorced. And I was trying to whatever I could to keep it together. First of all, you should have a standard and choose a very good wife. That'll help, right? And then you're gonna try to live up to her standard and try to take care of her. But anyway, coming from that home and realizing, okay, that it doesn't look good for me, right? That's the pattern coming from that. And so again, we've tried to do that and try to live a standard that would keep us together. And thank goodness, it's been 29 years now. And again, for anybody out there struggling with the marriage or whatever, and I've had them too. I just told you, right? um, I've had them too. Is if you can, as much as you can, try to serve your wife and try to live a high standard with her. Um, that'll make a big difference, right? Like, I'm a very selfish person by nature. Like, I just don't think of somebody else. I know in like back home in Hawaii, right? And like there's a lot of aloha, a lot of people think about each other a lot, which is wonderful. My wife's like that. I got some kids that are like that, a lot of family like that. I'm not naturally like that where I think of somebody else. And so I had to learn in my marriage that I got to think of my wife first. Here's a good example. Like when I brush my teeth, for instance, small thing, and I'm brushing my teeth, I put the toothpaste on. I want the toothpaste on my side. Stupid, right? But that's me. I want it on my side. So to help me be more thoughtful of my wife and serve her, I put the toothpaste and then I put it on her side of the sink, right? Or something simple. Try to clean up her side, right? There's a breakfast drink that I make her every morning so that I can be thoughtful of her, and that's helped a lot. So I tell everybody all the time, like if my wife ever decides to leave me, and this isn't my quote, it's somebody else's. Uh, Zig Ziglar, I think it is, famous speaker, motivational guy. You know, if my wife ever leaves me, I'm going with her. Right? She packs her bags, I'm jumping in, and wherever she goes, I'm going.
I love that, bro. That's cool. Oh man. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know if I interrupted you. I didn't mean to interrupt, but whatever. But I just thought that's funny because so my sister and I are 10 years apart. She got married when she was 18, and my mom actually passed away when I was 10 years old. Um, so it was kind of interesting for me. I almost grew up almost like an only child. So I find myself having tendencies like how you just mentioned too. Like a lot of times I'll do stuff and then somebody else would come in and be like, bro, how come you didn't, wipe this up first before I came in? Oh, sorry. I just never thought about it before. Kind of grew up like an only child almost. That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the marriage helps, right? With getting you out of that rut. But oh, go ahead. Go ahead. What are you gonna say?
No, no, you're right. You're right. Absolutely, the marriage does help. Having kids helps, right? Um, Studying other people, meaning like, okay, so for instance, in wrestling, right? When I wanted to learn wrestling, okay, it was actually Dwayne who told me to go and train with my dad, right? You got to have a mentor, you got to have somebody that knows more than you. And so watching the pattern of those that I saw, I was like, okay, those guys been married for like 20 years, or those guys been married for 30, 40, 50. I was like, hey, what did you guys do? Right? Just go ask them. They already done it, so go ask them. So that's what I ended up doing, is just talking to a lot of people that I thought had great marriages or were successful, and I would go and talk to them and find out what they did, and then I try to add that into my standard, right? Try to do the same thing. So it's helped a lot. Still
That's
working on it though. Still working on it.
oh, amen, brother. Still same here. Hey, when you talked about wrestling, I gotta ask you this question. What would you say is your biggest moment or your most proudest moment that you've had in your wrestling career? What would you say was it?
My most proudest moment. It would honestly be the beginning. So what I mean by that is, so when my parents got divorced, my dad was, you know, he was living away. Um, he actually moved back in with his mom for a little bit. I don't think I've ever said that, but yeah, he actually moved back in with his mom for a little bit because he didn't have a place to go. He was out of the house, and so I was being young, being not understanding. I actually, me and my dad didn't talk for a couple of years. Like I think it was like 2.5 years, and we're talking. I'm an only son, right? And I have these sisters, right? Four sisters, and um, so I'm only son, and so we've been close our whole lives. And like I always wanted a brother. I didn't get a brother. I had all these sisters, but I had my dad, so we was close. And then for this time period where I was upset at him, we didn't talk for like 2.5 years. So then basically what happened was, when I decided, okay, I want to start wrestling, and Dwayne said, because I asked Dwayne, as I said, listen, I want to do this, I'm ready to do this. How do you think I should learn? And he said, and this is probably the best piece of advice he gave me, and this is why I say the beginning was my most proudest moment. Is Dwayne said, a piece of advice I'll never forget. It was one of the best things he ever said. He said, you got to use what you got. And he said, basically what he meant by that was, he said, your dad is one of the best to ever do it. He's one of the greatest of all time. You need to go and learn from your dad. And I can never replace the, for lack of a better word, the blessing, the time period I had with my dad, because he never, like, here's the difference between me and Dwayne growing up. His dad would tell him stuff. He would explain stuff about wrestling. Like he understood the business. I didn't. Like my dad kept it very quiet. We didn't talk a whole lot about wrestling and the business. And as soon as I jumped in and I said, okay, I'm gonna train with you, Dad. I quit both my jobs, flew up to New Jersey where he was living, went and stayed with him, and he picked me up from the airport, and then we just drove for like an hour and a half down to South Jersey, down to Philadelphia area. And all we did was talk psychology. Like, this is why you do this. This is why you that prepping me. And when I say my proudest moments is spending that time with my father, because my father's passed away now. And if I didn't go and train with him and learn from him at that time and grow closer as a father and a son, I never would have gotten that time. Never. And so as much as I loved wrestling and as much as I learned from it, to me, my most proudest moment, what means the most to me and what I has made me now and what I share with everybody is that time I had with my father and learning something that he did his whole life. That was honestly, there is nothing that even compares to that.
Oh man, talk about hitting to the heart, bro. That's chicken skin. What you just said.
Mm.
I know that's gonna affect a lot of brothers that are gonna watch this, or anybody that ends up watching this episode, man. Appreciate you mentioning all those personal things. Could you please talk about what you're doing now? Now that WWE is behind you, and you have this great family, and you've been having your own successes doing business and whatnot. I know you mentioned that earlier. Could you please mention what you're doing now too?
Sure, sure. I do a couple of different things, but I would say that I specialize in basically sports enhancement. Now, I've done it with people that, uh, for instance, they go and see psychologists, or I've done it with businesses and those types of things. But I specifically love working with athletes and coaches and athletic programs, and that kind of thing is basically helping them engineer more victories or more winning. I've worked with some coaches at the collegiate level, at high school level, at club levels, and basically help them get wins that they've never gotten before. So, for instance, I'd worked with this college coach, and he'd never beaten a couple of these schools ever. We're talking Division I athletics here, and there was a few California schools that he'd actually never beaten, and I basically helped him do that. And so that's really in a nutshell what I do. I do a lot of sports enhancement, sports engineering. That involves some public speaking, that involves some motivational kind of speaking. It involves a lot of that. I've found though that the way to results with that is really that you got to take the physical, or what I call the muscle, right? You got to take that part and actually combine it with the mental training, with what I would call moral training, meaning having a standard, and you got to work at those things. So that's a lot of what I do now, with a lot of different people. So